66 years after entering Mayberry, only a precious few stars from the Andy Griffith Show are still with us today. For millions of Americans, losing these beloved faces feels like watching our own fondest childhood memories fade away. Today, we're stepping back in time to honor the surviving cast members in 2026, revealing how life changed for them and discovering the emotional story of the youngest legend who is still standing strong. Andy Griffith Sheriff Andy Taylor. Andy Griffith was born in 1926 in Mount Airy, North Carolina, and at just 34 years old, he became the heart and soul of Mayberry as Sheriff Andy Taylor. But Griffith's sheriff was unlike the tough, intimidating lawman television had made familiar. He rarely raised his voice or reached for his badge. Instead, he relied on patience, humor, and a quiet wisdom that made even the simplest problems feel manageable. Long before Mayberry, Griffith had already built a remarkable career. He began as a comedian and musician, found success on stage, and gained national attention with his unforgettable performance in the 1957 film A Face in the Crowd. Then came The Andy Griffith Show, which turned him into one of America's most recognizable television stars. Decades later, he introduced an entirely different side of himself as the clever, determined attorney Ben Matlock in Matlock. Griffith died in 2012 at the age of 86, but Sheriff Andy Taylor never truly left American television history. What made the character so special was his humanity. Andy wasn't simply the man in charge of Mayberry, he was the neighbor everyone trusted, the steady voice of reason and the friend who could settle an argument with a smile. For millions of older Americans, Mayberry wasn't just a fictional town. It felt like a comforting reminder of a simpler America, and Andy Griffith was the reason so many viewers wanted to come back week after week. Don Knotts, Barney Fife. Don Knotts was born in 1924 in Morgantown, West Virginia, and at 36 he stepped into the role that would make him one of television's most unforgettable comic actors, Deputy Barney Fife. Nervous, skinny, overly confident, and fiercely proud of his one-bullet authority, Barney was Mayberry's lovable walking disaster. He wanted desperately to be seen as a fearless lawman, but his own nerves usually gave him away. Yet the brilliance of Don Knotts was that Barney was never simply a fool. Every twitch, stammer, and burst of panic came from an actor with extraordinary comic timing. Knotts had already honed his craft through radio live comedy and television before joining The Andy Griffith Show. His talent soon carried into movies including The Ghost and Mr. Chicken and The Incredible Mr. Limpet, where he brought audiences the same wonderfully frantic energy. Knotts died in 2006 at the age of 81 from complications of lung cancer. But Barney Fife remains one of television's most beloved characters because beneath all the bluster was a genuinely loyal man who cared deeply about his friends and his little town. Barney could turn a routine police call into complete chaos, make a mountain out of a molehill, and somehow leave viewers laughing instead of frustrated. Don Knotts didn't just play Barney Fife, he transformed nervousness, insecurity, and overconfidence into comedy gold. And decades later, that laugh is still impossible to forget. Ron Howard Opie Taylor. Ron Howard was born in 1954 in Duncan, Oklahoma, and he was only 6 years old when he first appeared as Opie Taylor, the curious young son of Sheriff Andy Taylor. With his bright eyes, natural charm, and believable childlike innocence, Howard never made Opie feel like a scripted sitcom kid. He felt like a real boy growing up in a small American town, curious, stubborn, mischievous, and always learning something new. But what makes Howard's story remarkable is how far he traveled after leaving Mayberry. He became a familiar television face as Richie Cunningham on Happy Days, before making one of the most successful transitions from child star to filmmaker in Hollywood history. Behind the camera, Howard became an acclaimed director, guiding films such as Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, and Frost Nixon. His work earned him an Academy Award for Best Director for A Beautiful Mind, proving that the little boy who once played Opie had grown into one of Hollywood's most respected storytellers. As of 2026, Ron Howard is 72 and remains active in filmmaking. Yet for longtime viewers, he will always carry a special piece of Mayberry with him. His scenes with Andy Griffith captured something timeless about fatherhood, the lessons, the misunderstandings, the laughter, and the quiet moments that children remember long after they grow up. Opie wasn't just Andy's son, he was the emotional bridge that made Mayberry feel like home. Frances Bavier, Aunt B. Taylor. Frances Bavier was born in 1902 in New York City, and at 57, she became one of the most comforting figures in the Andy Griffith Show, Aunt B. Taylor. Gentle, proper, occasionally fussy, and always ready with a home-cooked meal. Bavier gave Aunt B the warmth of the kind-hearted relatives so many viewers recognized from their own families. But Bavier was far more than a sitcom performer. Before Mayberry, she had spent years working in theater, including Broadway, and appeared in numerous films and television productions. Her experience gave Aunt B a remarkable sense of authenticity. Even when she was worrying over Andy or fussing with Opie, there was always a quiet dignity beneath the comedy. After the Andy Griffith Show ended, Bavier largely withdrew from Hollywood and chose a much quieter life in Siler City, North Carolina. She died in 1989 at the age of 86 from heart failure. For longtime viewers, Aunt B was more than the woman who kept the Taylor household running. She represented something increasingly rare on television, the comfort of home, family, and familiar routines. Bavier made her character caring without becoming sentimental funny, without turning her into a caricature, and strong without needing to prove it. Whenever Aunt B entered the room with a worried expression or a freshly prepared meal, Mayberry seemed a little warmer. Frances Bavier understood that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness are what make a place and the people in it feel like family. Jim Nabors' Gomer Pyle. Jim Nabors was born in 1930 in Sylacauga, Alabama, and at 32 he became the wonderfully innocent Gomer Pyle on the Andy Griffith Show. With his wide-eyed expression, gentle nature, and unforgettable Southern voice, Nabors created one of Mayberry's most lovable characters. Gomer might have been easily confused, but he was never cruel or cynical. His simple honesty often made everyone around him seem far more complicated than they needed to be. What made Nabors even more surprising was the voice hiding behind that comic country boy persona. He possessed a rich, powerful baritone that could fill a concert hall. His singing career included recordings and television performances, and he eventually hosted his own variety program. Gomer became so popular that Nabors carried the character into Gomer Pyle USMC, where the lovable gas station attendant became the star of his own successful series. Nabors died in 2017 at the age of 87. The cause of death was not publicly disclosed in detail, and reports generally described his death as due to natural causes. For longtime viewers, Gomer Pyle remains memorable because his comedy never depended on being mean. He brought kindness, sincerity, and an almost childlike sense of wonder to Mayberry. Every confused reaction, enthusiastic shazam, and innocent attempt to help somehow made the town feel a little warmer. Jim Nabors proved that a character didn't need to be clever to win people's hearts. Sometimes being genuinely good was more than enough. George Lindsay Goober Pyle. George Lindsay was born in 1928 in Fairfield, Alabama, and at 35 he stepped into the role of Goober Pyle, the cheerful, goofy mechanic who brought a little extra mischief to Mayberry. With his easy grin, southern drawl, and knack for ridiculous impressions, Lindsay made Goober feel like the kind of fellow you might actually meet at the local filling station, always ready with a joke, a story, or an unusual solution to a simple problem. Lindsay's career stretched far beyond Mayberry. He continued playing Goober on Mayberry RFD and became widely known as a cast member of the long-running country variety show Hee Haw. He also lent his distinctive voice to animated films, including Disney's The Aristocats and Robin Hood, showing that his comic personality worked just as well behind the microphone. Lindsay died in 2012 at the age of 83 following heart failure. Yet Goober Pyle remains one of those characters who could make viewers smile without ever demanding the spotlight. He wasn't polished, sophisticated, or particularly clever, and that was exactly the charm. Lindsay played Goober as a genuinely good-natured man who simply enjoyed being useful, making people laugh, and being part of the community. In a town as gentle as Mayberry, Goober's loose, goofy energy never felt out of place. He felt like the friendly neighbor everyone knew and the one you couldn't help but smile when he walked through the door. Howard McNear Floyd Lawson. Howard McNear was born in 1905 in Los Angeles, California, and at 55 he became Floyd Lawson, Mayberry's wonderfully fussy and soft-spoken barber. Floyd rarely needed a big punchline to make viewers laugh. A nervous pause, a sideways glance, or a strangely serious comment could turn an ordinary haircut into one of the show's most memorable moments. Before television made him familiar to millions, McNear had already built an impressive career in radio. He was particularly well known for playing Doc Adams on the radio version of Gunsmoke, a role that showcased his remarkable voice and understated acting ability. His transition to television brought a different kind of comedy, and as Floyd, he became part of the everyday rhythm of Mayberry. McNear suffered a stroke in 1967, which severely affected his health and eventually limited his ability to perform on the show. He died in 1969 at the age of 63 from complications related to the stroke. Floyd Lawson may have been a supporting character, but Howard McNear gave him a personality audiences could never mistake. His barbershop became one of Mayberry's unofficial gathering places, a spot where hair was trimmed. Stories wandered from one subject to another, and local gossip somehow found its way into every conversation. McNear understood the power of subtle comedy. He didn't need to shout or steal the scene. Sometimes one peculiar expression or perfectly timed pause was enough. Through Floyd, he helped make Mayberry feel less like a television set and more like a real hometown where everyone knew everyone and everybody had something to say. ANETA CORSAUT Helen Crump. ANETA CORSAUT was born in 1933 in Hutchinson, Kansas, and at 29 she joined the Andy Griffith Show as Helen Crump, the intelligent and composed schoolteacher who became Andy Taylor's longtime love interest. CORSAUT gave Helen something television girlfriends did not always receive in that era, a strong sense of independence. She was warm and caring, but she could also stand her ground and give Andy a lesson when he needed one. Before Mayberry, CORSAUT had already appeared on screen in a variety of roles, including the 1958 science fiction classic The Blob opposite a young Steve McQueen. She later continued working in television, with appearances on shows including Matlock, once again sharing the screen with Andy Griffith. CORSAUT died in 1995 at the age of 62 after battling cancer. For longtime viewers, Helen Crump represented a different kind of warmth in Mayberry. She wasn't loud or dramatic, and she never needed to be. CORSAUT played her as thoughtful, patient, and quietly strong, the kind of woman who could manage a classroom full of children, navigate small-town gossip, and still keep Sheriff Taylor on his toes. Most importantly, Helen never felt like she existed simply to be Andy's girlfriend. She felt like a real part of Mayberry with her own career, opinions, and place in the community. ANETA CORSAUT brought dignity and sincerity to the role, helping give the show one of its most believable and enduring relationships. Thank you for watching today's video. If you find the content interesting or useful, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the latest videos. Your support is the biggest motivation for us to continue creating better quality content every day. What do you think about today's topic? Leave a comment below so we can discuss it together. See you in the next video. Have a great day.